If you're like me, your web pages rely on more than just one page for their final rendering. It's not uncommon to have external documents such as CSS, JavaScript, and server-side includes all combining together at runtime to create my final rendered page. In the past, these types of compound documents have been a little harder to work with inside of Dreamweaver. To test layout and interactivity, you would have to preview them in a browser. To work on the related documents, you would have to remember which document was linked to your page, open it separately, make your edits, and again, preview it in the browser. And as your CSS gets more complex, it can also be difficult to remember exactly which rule is styling which element. Well, I am pleased to say that in CS4, Dreamweaver has built-in functionality to make working on and previewing these pages intuitive and efficient. Live View, the Code Navigator, and related documents are going to become an indispensable part of your Dreamweaver workflow. We'll start by taking a look at the wonderful new feature, Live View. Now here I have our calendar.html page open, and although it may not look like it right now, this is a really cool page. What we have on this page is we have a Spry master detail region. Now Spry is Adobe's Ajax library, and typically using a Spry element on the page is going to require an external JavaScript file and maybe an external CSS file. A master detail region is no exception. Now, I could test this on my browser if I wanted to preview layout and interactivity, but the new WebKit integration inside Dreamweaver allows me to do it here now without having to go outside of Dreamweaver. A little bit more screen real estate, I'm going to go over to my panels and I'm going to collapse them down to icons. There we go. Now I'll turn on Live View by going to my document toolbar, and just beside the code, split, and design view icons, I have Live View. So I'm going to click on that. And now we see the rendering of the page. Wonderful. Well, what's really nice is that I can also preview here my CSS-based and JavaScript-based interactivity directly in Dreamweaver, which is really cool. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to show off another nice feature of Live View. Let's say you're interacting with your page, and you've decided that you want to freeze it at a certain location. You wanted to see exactly how it looked like in this particular moment in time. Well, if I go up to Live View, I can click on the drop-down menu and I can freeze the JavaScript. Freezing the JavaScript means that when I click or hover over any additional element, nothing really happens. It's just frozen at that spot. Really handy for working on a single state of a multi-state item. So that's really, really nice. Now I can unfreeze that JavaScript by either going back up to Live View or by using the F6 or Option F6 keyboard shortcut to unfreeze it, which is really cool. Now, often when working with compound documents, remembering and finding the specific CSS rules that drive that element can be time-consuming and frustrating. The Code Navigator makes accessing specific styles a snap. Now, you may have noticed this, but if I click on an element and I just sort of hang out there for a while, eventually this little icon comes up, and it looks like the wheel that you use to drive a ship. That is the Code Navigator. If I click on that, it brings the Code Navigator up. Now, the Code Navigator is everywhere. If you select an item and wait for a second or two, that'll show up. Notice that we have a tip here that tells us Alt-clicking will allow it to show up. Now on a Mac, that would be Command-Option-Click. Since it's in so many different places, I'm going to show you some of those other places in just a moment. Having that icon come up every single time you select something may be a little distracting after a while, especially once you're used to using the feature. So they do have a checkbox that allows you to disable the automatic icon coming up. So I'm going to turn that off, and now when I select something, notice I don't see the icon. Now, I noticed when I'm interacting with this that the selected items background and the hovered items background is exactly the same. That could lead to a little bit of confusion, so I want to go ahead and change that. I'm going to use the Code Navigator to isolate the exact rule, and then we're going to use another new feature, Related Documents, to go make a change. So I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and I'm going to click once. Now again, if I was on the Mac, that'd be Option-Command-Click. And when I do that, up comes the Code Navigator. Now, notice that I'm seeing all of the rules that are applying to the selected item in the order of cascade that they're being applied. I can also see all the external rules as well. Now, the background color I can find on this Master Detail, Master Column Selected rule. Hovering over the rules gives you a summary of the rule, which makes it really easy to find the property you're looking for. So I'm going to click once, and I'm taken straight to that rule. Now, you may have noticed how easy and effortlessly Dreamweaver displayed the appropriate CSS rule. That's really cool. That's another new feature, Related Documents. It lists any first-level child documents related to the current page. Now, additionally, CSS files will display even if they're nested within other documents. Very, very nice. You can see all of the related documents to a file by looking underneath the tab of the open file. Here we can display the source code for our current file, the external style sheet of the file, the Spry Effects JavaScript. We could just go on and on. Now, if you have too many to list in the document toolbar, you'll have a little drop-down menu over here that allows you to access all of those. Well, this was in the Spry Master Detail.css, and it's the background color. I'm going to just move right on over here so we can see this change take effect. So let me go ahead and select an item again. And I'm going to make a little change to this rule. Instead of the background color I've got now, I'm going to change this to FF9. Now what's nice is I haven't even saved the external CSS file yet, but Live View goes ahead and changes the preview for me. Isn't that nice? That way I could decide on whether I liked this before I committed to saving it or not. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now, I mentioned before that the Code Navigator was in multiple places. If you'll notice, if you're looking in Code View, the Code Navigator is now on the coding toolbar. You can also find it up in the menu under the View Code Navigator. There's also another keyboard shortcut for it there as well. And just to make sure that it's located in every single possible place, it's also down on your tag selector as well. You can access it by right-clicking and choosing Code Navigator from there. So the folks at Adobe want to make sure that no matter where you're working, you have access to the Code Navigator. All right, I'm going to switch back to Design View, and we can preview our finished page. Very, very nice. Now, by combining Live View, the Code Navigator, and related documents together, you can accurately preview CSS and JavaScript-based interactivity within Dreamweaver. You can edit specific styles with a single click and work on related documents without having to track them down and opening them separately. I think you'll find, as I have, that combining these features together will create a seamless workflow when working on your compound documents in Dreamweaver.